Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 874. I didn't say anything. Leonard Mitchell clasped his hands together and leaned in slightly. We have restored the scene Poirot saw before his death. This didn't directly show the murderer, but the glass on the oriel window happened to reflect Baron Sindras's figure. After a pause, Leonard added, This is too simple and unconvincing. A powerful banker and noble at Baron Sindras's level wouldn't need to personally take action or be present to watch if he wants someone dead, unless he has some special fetishes. And as you know, there are many ways to replicate such scenes, be it via an illusion or disguise. When he mentioned disguise, he looked up slightly and glanced at Dwayne Dantes. It was as though he was implying that the latter's present appearance was unlikely his true appearance, just like Gairman Sparrow and Sherlock Moriarty. What a simple and direct way of framing someone. It's really suspect if the murderer behind the scenes really wants to frame Baron Sindras. I should process everything from the beginning. First, assuming that I, in other words, Dwayne Dantes, act like an ordinary person. Anyway, I won't mention the conclusion and only raise questions to guide his train of thought. If the final answer isn't right, that must be because my dear poet misinterpreted it and was unable to figure out what I was getting at. Klein smiled as he raised his porcelain cup and took a sip of black tea. Let's not consider this problem first. If the person who wasn't embroiled in this matter wasn't me, how would the case have developed? Leonard raised his clasped hands slightly as he tapped his index finger. As a suspect, Dwayne Dantes would be remanded at the police station, but his butler, servants, neighbors, and friends will be able to testify that he has never made contact with Poirot's family. Hence, the testimonies from both sides will contradict strongly. The police will be unable to handle it and request the Nighthawks to intervene. Using mediumship means, we will see the scene Poirot had before committing suicide, thus obtaining Baron Sindras's figure. As he spoke, Leonard suddenly fell silent. After a few minutes, he continued speaking under Dwayne Dantes's smiling gaze. Regardless of the unconvincing, odd, and simplistic nature of the clue involving Baron Sindras, we will follow protocol and make contact with him and begin the relevant investigations. And this will lead to certain problems related to him being noticed by us. Baron Sindras is involved in matters involving the Beyonder domain, so he can't stand up to further scrutiny from the Nighthawks. The more Leonard spoke, the more certain he became. It was as though he had figured out the mastermind's line of thought. He or they might not care if their trap is seen through. As long as they get the Nighthawks to do a routine investigation on him, their goal will be achieved. This is because Baron Sindras hides a rather serious and easily discoverable problem. Yes, that's the same conclusion I have. This is actually closer to sounding the alarms by providing a tip-off, but it's more mild. It looks like a trap that will make the Nighthawks definitely investigate things while hiding their existence. Of course, I won't directly acknowledge your guess. Wouldn't it be awkward if I was actually wrong? Klein crossed his right leg over his left and laughed. Baron Sindras, who has been alerted, definitely won't show any problems now. Leonard slowly nodded and said as though explaining to himself, This Baron's experiences are rather legendary. He has been pushed to the brink of bankruptcy a few times, but he managed to turn the tide and ended up reaching a new height. Perhaps, in one of these instances, he had sold his soul to the devil, an evil god, or some other secret existence out of desperation. This story is quite reasonably crafted. Klein didn't comment on the accuracy of Leonard's guess before asking. On the other hand, how would the Nighthawks treat the real murderer that led to Poirot's suicide? Leonard temporarily put aside all his previous thoughts, and he began following the train of thought based on an ordinary development. The design trap is too crude. The cueing, guidance, and memory implants were done in an insufficiently concealed and mild manner. It's easy for people to discover problems. Therefore, it's unlikely to be done by mid- or high-sequence Beyonders from the spectator pathway. It looks more like it was done by a Beyonder from another pathway who relied on a mystical item to pose as a spectator. Before he finished his sentence, Leonard fell into silence again, his thoughts a mystery. Klein maintained his faint smile as he calmly looked at the poet. It was as though he had everything under control, but he wasn't going to say a thing. Everything depended on what Leonard figured out. This is very similar to what Old Man said from before. Is it really done by some mid or high sequence beyonder from the spectator pathway? His seemingly crude and flawed setup was actually a precise consideration of everyone's reaction. Everyone's response at every step of the way was taken into consideration, with the only mistake stemming from Dwayne Dantes' experience and wisdom? Leonard felt that he had already figured out the truth as he got up and coughed gently. "Thank you for your advice." Klein immediately chortled and said, "I didn't say anything." Without waiting for Leonard's response, he said, "Your former colleague got me to ask you how he should inform you if he were to discover traces of Instanguil." Leonard, who had planned on getting up to bid farewell, sat back down. Colored with a complicated expression, he said after more than 10 seconds of silence, "Pass the information in the form of a letter to 7 Pinster Street. This means that he won't be leaving Backland anytime soon. Or is it that no matter how far he goes to carry out missions, he will have the means to monitor 7 Pinster Street and read the letter remotely? It might be the latter assumption. A Marauder Pathways angel definitely has many magical secret techniques. Leonard can definitely use one of them. I can't ask, or else it will lower Dwayne Dantes' level and destroy my setting." Klein wore an unperturbed expression as he said with a smile, "I'll inform him." Leonard didn't immediately leave as he opened his mouth, paused, and asked, "If I wish to contact him, how should I do it?" His green eyes were deep as they spoke volumes when he asked. Klein was already prepared, so he said with a smile, "The spirit that wanders about the unfounded, the friendly creature that can be subordinated, the messenger that belongs to Gehrman Sparrow. You can ask Pallas about the exact ritual if you aren't too sure." Leonard knew that Gehrman Sparrow was Sherlock Moriarty, who was also Klein Moretti. He nodded indiscernibly and stood up. "Thank you for informing me. Please pardon me for my intrusion." With that said, he retreated to the door, opened it, and left the dream. "Hey, you left just like that? As a nightmare, or as a former nightmare, shouldn't you consider how there might be problems with your memory? You remembered it just from hearing it once? You aren't putting enough weight on this matter." Klein couldn't help but lampoon when he saw Leonard's figure disappear. He shook his head in exasperation, ended his afternoon nap, and began busying himself over the matter regarding West Balham. On the Golden Dream, Danitz, who had finally finished his mission, drank some ice light beer because of the recent hot weather. If it wasn't because the creation of ice needed beyonder powers, and that there wasn't much to go around, he felt that he could finish half a bucket of ice in one go. "That's what I call life." Danitz guzzled the remaining liquid in his cup. At this moment, he saw grayish-white fog appear before him as Gehrman Sparrow's voice began echoing in his ears. "Please inform Danitz that he is to immediately head to West Balham. Figure out the situation of the areas under the control of the 2 native generals, May Sanchez and Catania. He should take special note of any signs of Rose's school of thought activity." Head to West Balham? With a cup in hand, Danitz stammered Gehrman Sparrow's request repeatedly. He had once headed there with the Golden Dream crew to seek out treasure. He had also obtained rather detailed intel from his captain. Therefore, he knew how chaotic and dangerous West Balham was. "Furthermore, I have to go alone." Danitz uttered a sound as he found his future bleak. Primitive forests with all kinds of hidden and terrifying creatures, native tribes who believed in death and had all sorts of peculiarities, paths filled with bandits and rebel armies, villages with wraiths and shadows haunting them, and cities that had gunfights or even beyonder battles surfaced in his mind. "No, I have to say no to Gehrman Sparrow." "Say no." "He should at least send me a helper." Ordinary people can survive in West Balham and become rich, having their own manners. This means that it's not as horrifying as I imagine it to be. I'm just frightening myself. Besides, Gehrman Sparrow just requested me to figure out the situation, not to contact anyone." Danitz quickly forced a smile and requested Mr. Fool to inform Gehrman Sparrow that he would immediately take action. Then, following Gehrman Sparrow's instructions, he set up a bestowment ritual to pray to Mr. Fool. When the ritual came to an end, he saw an illusory door open. A dark golden sunbird-shaped brooch flew out, landing on the altar. Sun brooch. In the southern continent, in a kingdom once ruled by death, the sun pathway was one of the most effective beyonder pathways. Directly giving me such a precious item. It's not bad working for Gehrman Sparrow. However, he said something about it being borrowed. Danitz picked up the brooch and felt his surroundings turn hot and humid. After handing out a mission to Danitz, Klein was just about to open the door to instruct Richardson to get him a cup of iced water when he felt his spiritual perception trigger. Immediately, he activated his spirit vision and saw Rionette Tinker walk out of the void. She held the 4 blonde, red-eyed heads in her hand, with one of them having a letter in its mouth. "Who's it from? Leonard?" Klein reached out his right hand in suspicion.